Hello everyone and welcome into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Christopher Shepard. Thank you all for tuning in on this lovely Wednesday afternoon, wherever you are watching us from. Welcome. This is going to be a great show for a midweek show, as always. Kicking things off with our NBA Power Rankings. We always have to do it on this Wednesday. Then we continue with our rankings of the top 5 at each respective position in the MLB. This time it is the third baseman, the guys in the hot corner, and our shortstops, one of the most integral positions in all of sports, if you ask me. Then we look ahead to the college basketball weekend. A lot of different conference matchups that catch my eye and might catch your eye as well, especially in the top-heavy SEC. And then last but not least, I want to do a fun little segment, maybe not as serious as some of the other ones we're going to be talking about today. Potentially shocking decision made by Cooper Flagg a couple of weeks ago, where he stated his intent that perhaps he might want to stay one more year at Duke. Look into that what we will, but it certainly does intrigue me just a little bit, enough to include it for today's show. But before we get into any of that fun stuff, I do want to remind you, as always, to like, follow, and subscribe to the show on the network if you haven't done so already, to keep up to date with all our new content. And if you want to contribute and interact with the show a little bit more directly, consider making yourselves available of the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube, as well as our website, gsmcspodcast.net. Again, the best way to get your opinions, feedback, input, even tips and donations out there. They're genuinely appreciated by all concerned, not just me doing my own thing with this Dead Ball Sports Podcast, but others around the network as well. And it just makes our shows that much better when you, our faithful audience, are contributing to them. But without further ado, let's jump right into our first segment, which is our NBA Power Rankings. And we're going to do something fun here, something that we never really done with this segment. I'm going to look ahead through the schedules of all of these top 5 teams and talk about the most important stretch of games remaining for each and every single one of them. Now, I know that this is something new, and I know that I'm only going to have one day to implement it, but I think it's going to be really intriguing because a lot of these top 5 teams, some of them are performing as we expect they would be, but others are seemingly sliding down the rankings, and this 5th place team in particular could see themselves out of a top 5 spot within the coming weeks. You're not going to hear it from me, but maybe you'll hear it from other pundits and analysts along the way. Without further ado, let's take this out for a trial run, even though it's the only one I'll be doing, and let's see how this last edition, really, of my NBA Power Rankings takes off. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Speaking of the top 5 teams, at number 5, the team most likely to fall out of this list in the coming weeks, in my humble opinion, the New York Knicks. Their record now against the Cavs, Thunder, and Celtics, the top 3 teams in the league, is now 0-7 after back-to-back losses against both the Cavs and the Celtics just 2 weeks ago. They still have the league's 5th best record, but they are slowly plummeting down these rankings. And the bad news for them really is that they're not done with teams like the Cavs and Celtics in the regular season. And if they don't win any of those remaining games, then I have little reason to believe that this team is going to compete in the postseason. Yes, it doesn't necessarily come until April, so they have a little bit of time before then to try and stockpile as many wins as possible. But ultimately, it's those top 3 teams that you have to beat, and they have failed to do so. And really, most of the games against those top 3 competition were really non-competitive. They really didn't show any fight, especially in that beatdown at home, courtesy of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So if I'm a Knicks fan, I'm worrying at the state of this team against elite competition, because right now they're not at a place where you can say they can go into, say, TD Garden or Quicken Loans and beat the Cleveland Cavaliers or Boston Celtics right now, or for that matter, any team in the Eastern Conference, really. This Knicks team is really vulnerable to anyone, in my humble opinion. So that's the reason why I think they will be the most likely team to drop out of these rankings. Not just in my opinion, because this is the last time I'm doing these rankings, but in other analysts and pundits' opinions along the way as well. So that's the current state of the New York Knicks. Try as they might not, as Hawaiian 5-0 taps in. I don't necessarily see the comment thus far, my friend, but let me know what you are thinking about this current ranking. As we get into number 4, a team truly performing like a top 5 team, maybe one of the best teams, if not the best team, in the Western Conference based on current form at the moment. The Denver Nuggets have won 10 of their last 11 games, and they're looking like true contenders, especially now that players are performing around all-world player Nikola Jokic. But the most intriguing matchups for that matter, remaining for the Denver Nuggets come next month. Back-to-back games against the Oklahoma City Thunder on the road on March 9th and 10th, a week before my birthday, in fact, that could showcase two of the best teams in the Western Conference and two of the best players in the Western Conference. Right now, as we are currently speaking, the MVP straw polls have Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander basically neck to neck as Hawaiian 5-0 shouts me out, I guess. Thank you for the shout out, my friend. I hope you enjoy the show and this particular segment. But Denver is a team that right now is playing their best basketball of the season, and they have a couple of weeks before they have to go to OKC and prove it against what on paper and in terms of record is the best team in the Western Conference and are playing equally as well. So that's why I think the Denver Nuggets have a chance to move up, but I just want to see them play against OKC and prove that they can compete against a team of that caliber. They did lose to the Lakers, and who knows if that's a meaningful loss or not, because they might face each other again and the Nuggets might come out on top in a postseason setting, because I don't know how the Lakers will look in the postseason. But I digress, because this Denver Nuggets team right now at this current moment are playing like a top 5 unit. But then let's get into the third team on this list, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Certainly still a legitimate threat to win the Eastern Conference, the legitimate threat to reach the NBA Finals and win it all. And I really like how they're playing right now. Have had a couple of bizarre losses here and there, especially in the past few weeks, but still a very well-rounded, balanced unit. And then I feel like the most important stretch for the Cavs doesn't necessarily concern them, but other teams as well. For example, when you look at other contenders around them, like the Celtics, we're going to talk about the Thunder, the Nuggets, they all play important games that could concern the Cavs in terms of how both of those teams playing within them look. Who are the true competitors right now in terms of this top 3? And so the Thunder playing against the Nuggets again in about a couple of weeks' time, and then going to face Boston has huge ramifications for the Cavs, because it could prove that Denver is a nice contender in the Western Conference, and it could also prove that the Thunder are most likely the team that they're going to meet in the NBA Finals. And so I feel that that is important for them, as well as their remaining games coming up this Friday, in fact, against the Boston Celtics. And then, obviously, the games of the Knicks, which I feel almost certain that they will come out on top against, because they have not lost to the Knicks anytime soon. And so, another interesting game here is a back-to-back against the Indiana Pacers at the end of the season. Because usually, if you are a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers in position to wrap up the Eastern Conference ahead of time, you wouldn't necessarily place that much weight in a game, especially a back-to-back series against a team like Indiana. But Indiana did beat Cleveland before at home, and they are a team that, yes, are going to come into the back end of the playoff picture, but could sneak up on them at the end of the season. But I'm not too worried about games like the Knicks. I might be worried a little bit about this Boston game considering how well they are playing, and we'll talk about that as well. But for right now, Cleveland are looking every part of the Eastern Conference and NBA Finals contenders they have played like all season long. Now let's talk about them, Boston Celtics, another team that has won 10 out of their last 11 games. And there are 3 games specifically that I think will truly prove what the Boston Celtics are this season, and if they are the team we have seen these past couple of weeks. They have games that are all at TD Garden, most importantly, that will define their legitimacy as an NBA Finals contender. This Friday against the Cleveland Cavaliers, Sunday against the Denver Nuggets, 2 very tough games in their slate, and then March 12th, like we mentioned before, against the Thunder. All 3 of those teams are likely the biggest competitors to the Boston Celtics' repeat chances. And so, if they win at least 2 of those games, chances are we'll be looking at the Celtics as a true contender to not just get an advance to the NBA Finals, but to win the whole thing. Because they have played as of late very well. This team has been getting in rhythm as a collective. So, I would see no reason that if they win a couple of these games, that they wouldn't cement themselves as one of, if not the team to beat in the NBA. But they're all staring up, at least in terms of record right now, at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like I mentioned before, that back-to-back against Denver might be their toughest remaining 2-game stretch, and then they play Boston again on March 12th. So that will prove to me if this young group of Thunder stars has a legitimate chance of reaching the NBA Finals. But they have the MVP caliber talent in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They have the lineup they can continuously throw at teams to suggest that they are no fluke, and they have done so already. They have impressive wins thus far against the Celtics. I believe they have 1 win at the very least against the Cavs. They have had a bizarre loss in the recent weeks against the Timberwolves, where they allowed them to come back from a 24-point deficit. But I still believe in this Thunder squad more than I do potentially some other Western Conference teams. Like the Lakers, they could definitely break into this top 5, but come postseason time, are they going to be legitimate? And then Memphis, they're too volatile in terms of how they play with and without Ja Morant for me to really trust them enough to sustain that success headed into the postseason. So that rounds out my final top 5 here at GSMC. I hope you appreciated all my NBA rankings. But coming next, we transition over to my MLB rankings, continuing with talks of my top 5 at each respective position, talking about the guys at the hot corner this time around. We'll be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind.